Fireside Tales. Hello, I'm Merlin, Mililli. Welcome to my fireside, where I tell tales of weird things. So I'm a deadhead. That's somebody who enjoys the music of the Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia was fascinated by all things weird from an early age. He was the lead guitarist for the Grateful Dead for most of its inception, all of its inception. He understood that there was just had to be more to life, that what was here and being shown to him was just not all that interesting, and it didn't require enough of him. And I feel the same way, which is one reason why I'm making this show. Another reason I'm making this show is so that people can understand, well, me better, so that I can understand me better, but so that we can all understand reincarnation better. So Fireside Tales is about reincarnation, and I'd like to try to enlighten people as to exactly what reincarnation is, because we really, on the whole, don't seem to know at all. So one of the reasons why I'd like to keep a tradition of telling the story of the Grateful Dead to start off every Fireside Tales is because I believe in my last life that I was Pigpen, Ron Pigpen McKernan from the Grateful Dead. I was born the day he died. And I was born a small baby girl in 1973, the day Pigpen died. I started getting into the Dead when I was 12 as a young girl. There's all these weird little coincidences, plus I used to have recurring dreams. There's all these, and I still have some of them to this day that all seem to be Ron Pigpen McKernan's memories. I know things that I should know about him. And in our first episode, I shared a lot of those little weird coincidences. We went over that. But being a Deadhead, I have tickets to go see Dead & Company on October 29th, and I'd like to take a moment here to request Dark Star. October 29th, just give me a Dark Star. In all my 48 years of life in this body, I have not had a live Dark Star, and I would just like one before I die. It'd be great. please. And Mickey Hart, in regard to reincarnation, I have the password. Okay, so the story of the Grateful Dead. As I heard it from a deadhead, which I am, by a fire, which I am, as it should be told. There was a traveler. The traveler happens upon a town where he happens upon townspeople who are all standing over a dead body, squabbling over the dead man's debts and who's going to bury him, and they're arguing over the dead man's body. And the traveler is appalled by this atrocious sight unfolding before him. And he stops the townspeople, and he pays the dead man's debts, and he pays for a proper burial, and he prays over the dead man's grave, and he travels on, because that is what travelers do. And a few decades later, the traveler, same traveler from the beginning of the story, happens upon a life or death situation in which some stranger just comes out of nowhere and scoops him and saves his life. And the traveler says, "Thank you. Who are you? Why did you save my life?" And the stranger simply says, "I am the Grateful Dead." And so the stranger is reincarnated. It's a story about reincarnation. It's not a corpse. They aren't talking about zombies. It's an old Buddhist story from the Tibetan Book of the Dead that's about reincarnation. Coming back and remembering who you've been. The dead man wanted to repay the traveler for having saved his death. And so he saved the traveler's life because he was grateful. And he had been dead. So we've here at Fireside Tales told tales about Little Flower in ancient Peru, the shaman. We've told tales about the monk that I believe I was for thousands of years. And then last week we talked about Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh from ancient Egypt. Yes, I believe I was her. And I last left you all screaming in the desert. And that's where we pick up today. Because I came back screaming into the desert. Strangely, the next person I was to be would also be in charge of Upper and Lower Egypt. Only I would come back as a male this time. And it wouldn't be the first time I was a male, because I was a male as a monk. And then I discussed how after I had been Little Flower, I was penalized for living interdimensionally, and I was a cloud bird for 300 years. In high earth. I was not really there. I was only sort of there. So, I think it's pretty clear that Hatshepsut wanted to be male and powerful, and she got it. Because next I'd be Darius the Great. King of Kings, they called him. And he would rule over not only Upper and Lower Egypt, but the Sudan and Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia. I mean, all these places that are now, you know, now it's the Sudan, it's Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkestan, and India, all the way over to India. Darius and his son Xerxes ruled. So I guess Hatshepsut got what she wanted. But I don't think she really wanted to be Pharaoh. I think she wanted to do it right. She just wanted to get it right. Darius really seemed to get it right. I don't think the horse story is true. I think somebody made that up after he died. Some people don't think we should talk about Darius. There's a book about how we shouldn't discuss Darius, but I'm going to discuss Darius because I believe I was Darius. I also think they made up the horse story because his royal lineage came from his mother. And after Hatshepsut, I mean, this was the same region. People were not big on females ruling at all. Not even inadvertently. Nonetheless, he built a beautiful palace, which was open to the public, which was not something they were doing back then. But you could have audience with Darius in. There was the Hall of 100 Pillars. I believe that was the receiving hall. And then there was another hall where they could just gather. People could just gather there. He also built some of the first roads, and on these roads he had services put in where there was an inn every so often, and the inn had a restaurant type atmosphere for people to eat, and then rooms to let so people could sleep, and then also stables so a rider could get a fresh horse. And he also established one of the first messenger services along this road. So those stops were basically for the messengers to be able to get a message from point A to point B safely without problems. He also had the road guarded so people wouldn't get robbed. Messengers wouldn't be robbed while they were delivering messages. I have this strange love for the name Xerxes. I love that it's made of X's, and it's just the coolest name. I love to say Xerxes, and it's no surprise that Darius named his son Xerxes. But between the two of them, they really ruled over a vast part of the Middle East, most of it, and into India. Though I think India is technically part of the Middle East still. So it's right there, like on the Asian border. It's almost not the Middle East, but they still ruled over a very vast portion of that area. And I can't help but think that there's a lot of stuff that Darius came with from Hatshepsut that he used to be emperor, or whatever you want to call that. He was king of kings. Shah, I think they called them. But nonetheless, I think it feels to me like he remembered being Hatshepsut, at least vaguely, because he seems to have used it to be a better ruler. How did he know to make that road and the messenger service, and how did he know to do that? Hatshepsut ruled for 22 years as pharaoh of Upper and Lower Egypt. He used her experience. And he built great things. Oh, that's the other thing about Xerxes that I find weird. I'm like strangely proud of his accomplishments. Like a parent. That's weird. Why would I pick some weird person to really like in history like that? That's weird. I love his name. I love his accomplishments. I love him for reasons I don't know, other than that I must have been his father. My kennel's making funny noises. I want to discuss the in-between place. I'm going to put another log on. In-between lives is almost more interesting than the lives themselves. And it's interesting to me that I find the way the Grateful Dead used to like to play a show in like one fell swoop, where they would not really take a break between songs, but just transition from one song into another smoothly. And I've often said that I thought that sometimes the in-between parts were certainly more interesting, but more beautiful. The transitions between the songs, I've often said that I thought that they were more beautiful than the songs themselves. Now, in between lives, well, the last thing I remember as Pigpen was zooming off through space. As far as I could go, out into space. Just my soul was just going out into space, or what I thought was out into space. Only to find that I was, I guess, basically moving through the birth canal and being born. The end of space was air and light and my parents and the doctor and somebody smacking me on the back. And the in-between between Hatshepsut and Darius was the desert, this just screaming in the desert. She died screaming in the desert, and he was born screaming in the desert. So I find those in-between periods rather interesting. I also find it interesting that there does not seem to be another life between Hatshepsut and Darius. But there's 1,000 years between their births. So I'm starting to theorize that before the flood, people just lived longer. And after the flood, my lives seem to get more close together. And we'll discuss more on the Great Flood next week. But in my book, in the Akashic Records, there's this line where these lives that I'm discussing now, Little Flower, the Buddhist monk, Hatshepsut, Darius, in all those lives, the book is like dry and brittle and sandy, right? And then after that, it gets darker and wet and muddy. Does that make sense? It seems like it must be a watermark, literally, from the Great Flood. I don't know if that lines up with the other stories of the Great Flood, if the years will line up or not, but next week we'll discuss the Great Flood. Another tradition I'd like to keep here at Fireside Tales is to play David Crosby's Deja Vu in a different way every week. I did it on the acoustic guitar with an amp the first week. Then I did it on the 12-string the next week. Then I did it on the harp for the Hatshepsut episode. And today, because Darius is King of Kings and a little more bold and brash than the rest of the people I've been, we're going to rock it out on electric guitar. So I was pausing before I played Deja Vu. And that didn't seem to work out so well. I had the audio and video separate really strangely last time I did it, so I'm not gonna pause. We're just gonna go right into this. So I don't know that we've all been here before, but a lot of us have and are reliving this. So if you feel that you've been reincarnated, you're not alone. And I want people to know that. I feel I've been reincarnated, and I'm trying to figure out why and, what all this is about. So we're figuring it out together. Figure it out with me every Friday night here at Fireside Tales. If I had ever been here before, I would probably know just what to do. Don't you? If I had ever been here before on another time around the wheel, I would probably know just how to deal with all of you. And I feel like I've been here before. Feel like I've been here before, and it makes me wonder what's going on. know? Don't you wonder? What's going on down under you? La da da, la da da, la da da da, la da da da, la. We have all been here before. 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 So maybe we haven't all been here before. And it might just be the murdered. But it seems to me that maybe people lived longer before the Great Flood. So we'll have to look into that a little more. So catch us next week when we discuss the Great Flood at more length. And we'll tell the story of the Grateful Dead. And we'll sing Deja Vu in a new and interesting way. Stay with us. Get weird with us again next week. Where you better believe it, we're going to get weird. So, I guess that's it for me today. Thanks for watching. Join us next week.